The report arrived in a plain manila envelope with no return address. Emily Carter found it nestled amongst the fresh towels in room 408 as she was stacking them on her cleaning cart. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Surprise inspection. Labor conditions. June. Nothing more. She slipped it into the pocket of her blue uniform and continued folding the corners of the sheets into perfect angles, something she had been doing for 16 years at the Grand Imperial Hotel. The paper burned against her thigh, but her hands did not tremble. Richard Sterling breezed past her without a glance, talking on his phone to someone in German. His Armani suit exuded a scent Emily recognized as expensive ambition. She knew each guest by their cologne, the way they folded damp towels, the tip they left or didn't. The managers were even more predictable. Richard always walked as if the floor belonged to him, because it did. Heir to the hotel, 38 years old, MBA from Harvard, and an innate disdain for anyone earning less than 5 figures a month. Emily finished the room in 12 minutes, 3 minutes under the standard, and pushed the cart into the hallway. The Persian rug muffled her steps. At the Grand Imperial, the cleaning staff had to be ghosts, efficient, invisible, silent. She had perfected it, turning it into an art form. No one noticed her presence. Until something went wrong. A smudge on the mirror, a speck of dust on the chandelier. Then they saw her, but only to point out the error. The envelope continued to burn in her pocket. Inspection. The word tasted like industrial lavender, that disinfectant she used to scrub wine stains out of the carpets. Lavender meant control, order, the illusion that she could clean up any mess if she worked hard enough. But there were stains that wouldn't come out, the stains of insecurity, the stains of fear, the stains of raising a daughter alone on $1,200 a month, while Richard signed checks for $10,000 to replace the lobby curtains. She parked the cart in the storage room and descended the service stairs. She never used the main elevator. Those 36 square feet of gilded mirrors were the territory of guests, not the help. That's what Richard called the cleaning staff, the help, as if they were part of the scenery, not people with names, mortgages, daughters in college. Emily had learned years ago that arguing that point was a waste of time and a job. Better to fold towels in silence and save every penny, so Ashley could finish law school. Mr. Hoffman arrived on a Tuesday in June, without a reservation. Emily was cleaning the lobby when Richard came rushing down the stairs. Buttoning his jacket, the German man was tall, 60-something, wearing a grey suit that Emily pegged at less than $500, Clark's shoes, not Church's, Seiko watch, not Rolex, details that Richard missed because he was too busy extending his hand, with a bow that bordered on pathetic. Mr. Hoffman, oh, what an honor. Your assistant informed me of your arrival, but I thought it was scheduled for tomorrow. Richard's voice dripped with flattery. Emily continued polishing the brass handrail without looking up, but her ears were perked. Mr. Hoffman responded in English, with a noticeable accent. The best business deals are evaluated without warning, Mr. Sterling. That's how one sees reality, not the theatre. Richard laughed, a little too loudly. Emily felt the manager's discomfort as if it were tangible, a cold fog filling the lobby. Mr. Hoffman looked around with the eyes of an accountant, pausing at every corner, every employee. His gaze fell on Emily. She lowered her head instinctively, but he walked towards her, ignoring Richard, who followed him, like a confused puppy. "Excuse me, madam. How long have you been working here?" His English was functional, but he switched to German. "Wie lange arbeiten Sie hier schon?" Emily blinked. No one ever asked her that. No one ever asked her anything. She responded in German, a language she had learned in the orphanage, because the headmistress was from Munich. 16 years, sir." Mr. Hoffman nodded, ignoring Richard's expression, whose jaw had dropped, like a broken door. The German continued in his language. Are the working conditions fair? Are breaks and schedules respected? Emily felt the weight of the question. Behind Mr. Hoffman, Richard gestured furiously, pointing at his watch, trying to regain control of the situation. But Mr. Hoffman ignored him, with a coldness Emily found beautiful. She answered with a half-truth. "We have a contract, sir. Everything is in order." A white lie. The shifts were 10 hours, not 8. Overtime wasn't paid. It was compensated with days off that never came. But saying that was signing her termination papers. Mr. Hoffman studied her face for an eternal moment. Then he nodded and turned to Richard. "Show me my room. I need to rest." That night, Emily didn't sleep. The 2-bedroom apartment in Queens smelled of sautéed vegetables and unpaid bills. Ashley was studying at the dining table, surrounded by law books and yellow highlighters. She was 20 years old and had the eyes of her dead father, a man Emily preferred not to remember. Every time she looked at her daughter, she saw proof that she had done something right in this world, despite everything. "Why was that man talking to you?" Ashley didn't look up from her notes, but her tone was curious. "Walter told me about the hotel when I called." Walter was the concierge who had treated Ashley like a niece ever since Emily started at the Grand Imperial. Emily poured herself some water and answered, "I don't know. He asked strange things about schedules, contracts." Ashley put down her highlighter. "Labor inspection stuff?" "Maybe." Emily drank slowly. The water tasted of chlorine, like everything in New York City that summer. "Or maybe he's just a weird old guy who talks to the help to feel progressive." Ashley frowned. "Don't call yourself that. You're head of housekeeping, not the help." Emily smiled weakly. Head of housekeeping, an elegant title for coordinating 8 women who scrubbed toilets and changed stained sheets for $1,000 a month. Richard had promised them a raise after the sale of the hotel to the German consortium. An empty promise. Emily knew it. When the rich sold, the poor paid. She went to bed past midnight, but sleep didn't come. The manila envelope was still in her pocket, forgotten. She took it out and reread the note under the light of her phone. Surprise inspection, June. It was June. The German man had arrived today. Emily didn't believe in coincidences. 25 years of cleaning hotel rooms had taught her that the rich never asked about labor conditions, unless there was a reason. Mr. Hoffman wasn't an investor, he was something else. At 3 in the morning, she made a decision. Tomorrow, she would search Richard's documents. The manager left everything in his office, confident that the help couldn't read. But Emily had survived 16 years at the Grand Imperial Hotel precisely because she knew when to look, when to keep silent, and when to act. The problem was, acting always came at a cost, and she no longer knew if she could afford to pay it. Richard Sterling's office smelled of expensive cologne and superiority. Emily entered at 6 in the morning, when the manager was still asleep in his penthouse on Park Avenue. The master key hung from her belt, a familiar weight that gave her access to every door in the hotel. It was her tool and her symbol, invisible, necessary, forgotten. With it, Emily entered other people's worlds, cleaned up their messes, and disappeared without a trace. A perfect metaphor for her life. Richard's desk was organized chaos, contracts, financial projections, printed emails. Emily searched methodically, touching only what was necessary. She found the file in the 3rd drawer. Grand Imperial Project, Sale, Confidential. Inside were organizational charts with names crossed out in red. Hers was among them. Deferred dismissal, the marginal note read. Post-sale. Estimated savings, 40% of the cleaning staff payroll. Emily's hands trembled. 16 years. 16 years cleaning this goddamn palace, only for Richard to discard her like a used towel. Ashley was in her second year of college. She needed 2 more years. $8,000 a year. If Emily lost her job, her daughter lost her future. Simple math of poverty. She kept searching. She found an audit contract signed by a Mr. Klaus Hoffmann, representative of the European Hotel Workers' Union, not an investor. An auditor, sent to investigate anonymous complaints of labor exploitation. The German consortium had demanded the report before closing the purchase. If Hoffmann found irregularities, the sale would be cancelled. That's why Richard was fawning over him. That's why Hoffmann was asking questions of the help. Emily photographed the documents with trembling hands and left the office. In the hallway, she ran into Hoffmann, who was going down to breakfast. He looked at her with something akin to complicity. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter." He called her Mrs. No one called her Mrs. Emily nodded and continued walking, with the photos burning in her phone like the envelope had burned in her pocket. In the cleaning supply room, she sat down among mops and detergents. The scent of lavender enveloped her, but this time it brought no calm. She had crossed a line. She knew the truth, and the truth, in the hands of a woman like her, was a dangerous weapon. She could use it to save her job, or to destroy Richard. But both options had the same price, becoming visible, and people like Emily had learned that being visible was inviting disaster. Was it worth risking everything for dignity, or was it better to remain the help, invisible and safe, until Richard erased her from the map anyway? Hoffmann looked for her on the 3rd day. Emily was in room 612, changing sheets, when he appeared in the doorway, without knocking. Strange behavior for a guest. But Hoffmann wasn't a normal guest. He closed the door behind him. Emily heard the click like a death sentence. "I know you found the documents, Mrs. Carter." His German accent was soft, almost paternal. Emily left the sheet half-folded, denying it was useless. Hoffmann continued, "I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to harm men like Sterling. What do you want from me?" Emily kept her voice steady, but her hands gripped the white sheet until it was wrinkled. Hoffmann sat on the freshly made bed, a gesture that would have infuriated Emily in any other context. Now she could only concentrate on his words. "I need testimonies from workers who confirm the abuses, unpaid overtime, illegal shifts, harassment. I have documents, but the judges want voices, real people. People with names and addresses that Richard can destroy." Emily released the sheet. The knot in her stomach tightened. "I can't lose this job. My daughter, your daughter deserves a mother who doesn't have to choose between dignity and survival." Hoffmann interrupted her firmly. "The system works because people like you have too much to lose. But if no one speaks up, nothing changes. Ever." Emily thought of Ashley, of the law books scattered across the dining room table, of the dark circles under her daughter's eyes that she hid with cheap makeup. She thought of 16 years cleaning up other people's messes, literal and figurative, while Richard bought cars that cost more than her 5-year salary. She thought of the master key hanging from her belt, of all the doors it opened for others, but that remained closed to her. "Can I do it anonymously?" she asked, hating herself for the hope in her voice. Hoffmann shook his head. "Anonymous testimonies have no legal weight. I need names, contracts, willingness to appear if necessary." Emily closed her eyes. The scent of lavender surrounded her. But now it smelled like a trap. Accepting was risking everything. Refusing was continuing to be invisible until Richard decided she wasn't even worth that. There was no safe option, only degrees of risk. "Let me think about it." She turned to the bed, smoothing the wrinkles that Hoffmann had left when he sat down. He stood up, leaving a card on the pillow. "You have my number. If you decide to help, let me know before Friday. After that, it will be too late." He left without another word. Emily put the card in the pocket where she had previously carried the envelope. Her fingers brushed the master key. access to all the rooms in the hotel, but no key to open the cage of her own life. Ashley noticed the change that night. Emily picked at her dinner without eating, lost in thoughts that she didn't share. Her daughter put down her silverware with a deliberate clatter. "Are you going to tell me what's going on? Or are we going to keep pretending that everything is fine?" Emily looked up. Ashley was looking at her with those overly adult eyes, inherited from a childhood in which she had to grow up fast because her mother worked 12 hours a day. Sighing, Emily told her everything: Hoffman, the audit, the documents, the offer. Ashley listened in silence, chewing slowly, processing. When Emily finished, her daughter asked, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. If I testify, Richard will fire me as soon as he finds out. If I do nothing, he'll fire me anyway after the sale." Emily rubbed her temples. "It's choosing between dying now or dying later." "No." Ashley leaned across the table. "It's choosing between dying in silence or dying screaming. If you're going to lose your job anyway, at least let it be for something worthwhile." Emily looked at her, surprised. "Do you know how much your college costs? Do you know that without that job I can't pay for it?" "Yes." Ashley didn't blink. "And I also know that you're raising me to be a lawyer precisely to defend people like you. What's the point of me studying law if my own mother has no right to anything?" The words fell like stones into still water. Emily felt something break inside her chest, a shield she'd built over 25 years just shattering. Ashley continued, her voice softer. "Mom, I've watched you come home broken for 20 years, smelling of lavender cleaner and exhaustion, accepting humiliation because you think it's the price of giving me a future. But I don't want a future bought with your dignity." It's easy to talk about dignity when you're not paying the bills. Emily felt the bitterness in her own voice, unable to stop it. Ashley stood, walked around the table, and hugged her mother. She smelled of cheap soap and youth. Emily allowed herself to cry for the first time in years, silent tears soaking her daughter's shoulder. "I'm not saying it's easy," Ashley whispered into her hair. "I'm saying you deserve more than surviving. Even if that means I have to put college on hold for a year. I can work, Mom. I'm not going to fall apart." Emily pulled away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "You're not putting anything on hold, I promise." But even as she said it, she didn't know how she would keep that promise. She only knew that Ashley was right about one thing. She couldn't keep being invisible. The world had erased her for too long. Maybe it was time to appear, even if it meant burning in the process. On Friday morning, Emily called Mr. Hoffman. They met at a diner far from the Grand Imperial Hotel in the Lower East Side, where no one from the hotel would set foot. Mr. Hoffman arrived on time with a manila folder under his arm. Emily ordered tea. She needed something to do with her trembling hands. "I agree to testify." She blurted the words out before she could regret them. Mr. Hoffman nodded without any drama, as if he'd always known she would say yes. He opened the folder and slid documents across the table. Confidentiality agreements Emily would have to break, legal forms she had to sign, risks she needed to understand. "If Richard Sterling discovers you're my source before the final report, he can sue you for breach of contract. Penalties of up to $20,000. Mr. Hoffman didn't sugarcoat the truth. Emily appreciated that, even if it made her stomach churn. "He can also fire you for cause, without severance. But if we wait for the official report, you'll be legally protected." "How long until then?" Emily sipped her tea. It burned, but the pain anchored her to the moment. 2 weeks. I need testimony from at least 5 more employees. You would be the 6th. With that, I can close the case. Who else is willing?" Emily was curious. Who else at the hotel had her same degree of desperation and courage? Mr. Hoffman shook his head. "I can't reveal that. Confidentiality. But I assure you, you're not alone." Emily signed the papers with a surprisingly steady hand. Each signature was a bridge burned. When she finished, Mr. Hoffman gathered the documents and handed her an envelope. $3,000. Advance for legal expenses if Richard Sterling tries anything. It's not much, but it's what I can offer now. Emily took the envelope without counting the money. $3,000. 2 months' salary. Ashley could finish the semester even if Emily lost her job tomorrow. Small relief in the midst of the disaster. She left the diner feeling like she'd either sold her soul or bought her freedom. She didn't know which yet. On the subway back to the hotel, a woman in a cleaning uniform sat across from her. She looked exhausted, age undefined, worn-out shoes. Emily saw her own reflection in that stranger, all the women who scrubbed floors so others could walk without getting dirty, all invisible until someone decided to look. For the first time in years, Emily felt something akin to pride. Small, fragile, but real. She was doing something. Maybe stupid, maybe suicidal, but something. She wasn't just the help anymore. She was a witness, and witnesses, even if silent for years, eventually speak. Richard Sterling smelled the betrayal 2 days later. Emily was cleaning room 408 when the manager walked in without knocking, with 2 security guards. His face was a mask of contained fury. "My office. Now!" Emily dropped the mop and followed him, her heart pounding against her ribs. In the hallway, other employees watched with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Walter, the concierge, gave her a warning look. She didn't respond. Richard Sterling's office was hostile territory. He closed the door and threw an envelope onto the desk. Photos. Emily recognized her own silhouette, leaving the diner in the Lower East Side, sitting across from Mr. Hoffman. "Want to explain what the hell this is?" Richard Sterling's voice was ice and venom. Emily swallowed, searching for words that wouldn't compromise Mr. Hoffman. Richard Sterling didn't give her time. "I knew that German was a rat, but I didn't expect my own employee to betray me. How much did he pay you? $1,000? $2,000? He leaned over the desk, invading Emily's space. She stepped back instinctively. Richard Sterling smiled without humor. Or maybe it wasn't money. Maybe it was the cheap story of social justice. "Did he make you feel important, Emily? Did he tell you that you were a heroine?" "He told me the truth." Emily found her voice, even though it trembled. "That you exploit us. That you plan to fire us all after the sale. That 16 years of my life aren't worth so much as a letter of recommendation to you." Richard Sterling looked at her the way one looks at an annoying insect. "Your life is worth nothing, Emily. You're replaceable. There are 1,000 women like you waiting for your spot. No education, no options, not enough dignity to refuse a crappy job." Each word was a calculated blow. Emily felt tears of rage, but she held them back. Richard Sterling continued, enjoying his power. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Breach of confidentiality agreement. 0 severance. And if Mr. Hoffman presents that damn report with your testimony, I'll sue you for $20,000. Understand? I'm going to ruin you so completely that your daughter will have to drop out of college to support you." Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. 20,000. Ashley. College. Future. All burning. Richard Sterling pointed to the door. "You have 1 hour to clear out your locker and disappear. If I see you in this hotel after that, I'm calling the police." The guards escorted her out. In the hallway, familiar faces looked away. No one helped. No one protested. Everyone was protecting their own skin. Emily didn't blame them. Walter waited for her in the cleaning supply room with a cardboard box. "I'm sorry, Emily." His voice was genuine. She packed her things in silence. A photo of Ashley, a coffee mug, the master key she now had to return. When she left it on the table, she felt like she was cutting off a part of herself. 16 years reduced to a cardboard box and a returned key. She left the Grand Imperial through the service entrance, as always, invisible until the end. Ashley found her crying in the kitchen that night. Emily told her everything between sobs. The firing, the lawsuit, the $20,000. Her daughter, Emily, didn't cry. She hugged her mother and said, "We'll call Mr. Hoffman. He'll know what to do." But Emily Carter knew. There was nothing to be done. Richard Sterling had expensive lawyers. She had $3,000 and a testimony she could no longer give without ruining herself. The system worked. The rich won. The poor paid. Mr. Hoffman arrived at the apartment 2 hours later. Ashley opened the door for him, studying him with that pre-law student gaze that could disarm anyone. He sat on the worn sofa, across from Emily, and spoke bluntly. "Sterling is scared. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have reacted this way. That means the report will destroy him, but only if you maintain your testimony." "I can't." Emily shook her head. "He'll sue me. Ashley will have to drop out of school. It's not worth it." "When did you start believing you're not worth it, Mom?" Ashley's voice cut like a scalpel. Emily looked at her, surprised. Her daughter continued, "All my life, I've watched you accept crap from Dad, from the hotel, from Sterling, always saying it was for me. But I never asked you to sacrifice yourself like this. I asked you to fight. You don't know what it's like to lose everything." Emily felt the automatic defense, the instinct to protect her daughter from reality. But Ashley didn't back down. "No, I don't, because you always lose it before I do. But this time, I want you to win something, even if it means we lose together." "First," Mr. Hoffman intervened, "the union can protect you legally. We have a fund for cases like this. If Sterling sues, we cover the legal costs and pay the fine if necessary. You won't be alone." Emily looked at him, searching for the catch. In her experience, no one helped for free. But Mr. Hoffman held her gaze with an honesty that seemed real. "This isn't charity, Mrs. Carter. It's an investment. If we win this case, we set a precedent. Other hotels will fall. Other Sterlings will lose. But we need you to stand firm." Emily thought about the master key. For 16 years, it had opened doors for others. Now she had the opportunity to open one for herself. Terrifying, uncertain, possibly destructive, but hers. She looked at Ashley, who nodded with determination. She looked at Mr. Hoffman, who waited patiently. Then she looked at her own hands, wrinkled by detergents and work, but still capable of holding something more than rags. "I'll maintain the testimony." The words came out firm. "But if this goes wrong, if we lose everything, I want you to promise me something, Ashley. You'll finish your degree, even if you have to pause it, even if it takes 10 years. You're not going to be like me." "I don't want to be different from you," Ashley hugged her mother. "I want to be exactly like you, but in a world where people like you don't have to choose between dignity and survival." The report was published 3 weeks later. Mr. Hoffman presented it to the press before sending it to the German consortium. Front-page news in the New York Times. "The Grand Imperial Hotel. Systemic labor exploitation uncovers attempted fraudulent sale." The article detailed everything: illegal shifts, stolen overtime, manipulated contracts, harassment, 6 testimonies. Emily Carter, head of housekeeping, was the most cited name. Her face appeared on television. Her phone exploded with calls. Richard Sterling responded with the fury of a cornered animal. He sued Emily, Mr. Hoffman, the union, but the damage was done. The German consortium cancelled the purchase. The hotel's stock plummeted. The investors demanded Sterling's head. 3 days later, the board of directors fired him. Emily saw the news on her phone, sitting on the sofa in her apartment, and felt no triumph, only weariness. She had won the battle. But the war had left her bleeding. The union kept its promise. Pro bono lawyers blocked Sterling's lawsuit. The Department of Labor began inspections. 40 employees of the Grand Imperial received compensation for years of abuse. Emily received $18,000, $1,000 for each year worked, plus compensation for wrongful termination. Ashley cried with relief when she saw the transfer. Her mother did not. Emily had passed the point of tears. Walter called her 2 weeks later. The new manager of the hotel wanted to rehire her with a salary increase and decent conditions, $1,400 a month, an 8-hour workday, overtime paid at double. Emily accepted, although the offer tasted bittersweet. $1,400, $200 more than before, the price of her testimony, of her forced visibility. She wondered if she would ever feel it was worth it. She returned to the Grand Imperial on a Tuesday. Familiar faces greeted her with awkward hugs and whispered thanks. Thanks for having the guts, Emily. Someone had to do it. But she also felt distance. She had crossed a line that others didn't dare to cross. She was no longer just a colleague. She was a symbol, a reminder that rebelling was possible, but costly. They admired her and feared her in equal measure. The cleaning supply room smelled the same. Industrial lavender, chlorine, other people's weariness. Emily put her things in the locker and hung the master key on her belt. Same weight, same metal, but now it meant something different. Not just access to other people's rooms, access to her own life. Small difference, but real. The following months were strange. Emily worked under a new manager, a 50-year-old woman, who treated the staff with professional respect. The conditions improved. Real 8-hour shifts, breaks respected, no yelling. But Emily felt the invisible scar of the conflict, anxiety when entering rooms, fear that every guest was one of Sterling's lawyers, nightmares where she lost the lawsuit, and Ashley dropped out of college. Therapy she couldn't afford, but that Ashley insisted she needed. Ashley finished the semester with excellent grades. She got a scholarship from the union. Ironic but welcome. She was studying labor law now, focused on defending workers like her mother. Emily saw her studying at night and felt pride, mixed with guilt. Had she transferred her struggle to her daughter? Was that fair? Ashley told her not to be silly, that each generation fought its battles, but Emily knew that some battles were inherited, whether they wanted to be or not. Mr. Hoffman returned to the hotel in December, not as an auditor, but as a real guest. Emily found him in the lobby. Admiring the Christmas decorations, he smiled when he saw her. "Mrs. Carter, you look well." A kind lie. Emily knew she looked tired, older than 6 months ago, but she appreciated the gesture. They talked briefly. Mr. Hoffman told her that the Grand Imperial case had inspired audits in 12 other hotels. 3 managers fired, 200 employees compensated. "All thanks to you," he said. Emily shook her head. "Thanks to all of us." That night, cleaning room 48, the same one where she had found the manila envelope months ago. Emily stopped in front of the mirror. She saw herself, a 42-year-old woman, in a blue uniform, cracked hands, tired eyes. But she also saw something more, someone who had spoken up when silence was easier, someone who had risked everything for something intangible called dignity. She didn't know if it had been worth it. She probably never would, but at least now, when she looked in the mirror, she saw a person, not just the help. She finished cleaning and left the room. The master key hung from her belt, a familiar weight. She closed the door carefully, making sure it was locked tight. A simple act, but full of meaning. Some doors were closing, others were opening. And Emily, finally, had the keys to both. Spring returned to New York City. Emily completed a year under the Grand Imperial Hotel's new management. The hotel had changed, a strong union, regular inspections, a management that listened, but some ghosts lingered. Richard, ruined but vengeful, continued to send threatening letters, which the union's lawyers blocked. Emily received them with resignation. The price of being visible was this, never to be forgotten, by either allies or enemies. Ashley graduated in June. Emily cried at the ceremony, tears of pride and relief. Her daughter wore a cap and gown, a radiant smile, an open future. Afterward, Ashley gave her an envelope. Inside, a letter of acceptance from a law firm specializing in labor law. I start in September. Mom, I'm going to defend people like you, people who deserve more than the world gives them. Emily hugged her daughter, speechless. Some victories were small, slow, painful, but they were victories. Richard appeared one last time. Emily was cleaning the lobby when he walked in, drunk and disheveled. The new manager called security, but Richard shouted before they could take him away. "Are you happy, Emily? Was it worth destroying my life to win $200 more?" Emily looked at him without fear. For the first time, Richard seemed small to her, a man who was only powerful when others were invisible. "I didn't destroy your life, Richard," Emily spoke calmly. "You destroyed your own when you decided that people like me didn't deserve to breathe the same air as you. I just refused to disappear." Security took him away. Emily never saw him again. She learned from Walter that Richard had sold what was left of his inheritance and left the United States. Rumors said he was in Dubai, trying to start over. Emily felt no pity. Some men needed to lose everything to understand that others had nothing from the start. That night, Emily and Ashley had dinner in their apartment, a frittata, bread, cheap wine, easy conversation about everything and nothing. At some point, Ashley asked, "Would you do it again? If you could go back to the beginning, would you testify again?" Emily thought for a long time. The honest answer was complicated. She had gained dignity but lost peace of mind. She had saved her job but carried invisible scars. She had seen her daughter succeed but had also dragged her into her struggle. "Yes," Emily finally answered, "because now, when I look in the mirror, I recognize myself. For years, I was a ghost. Now I'm a person, afraid, with doubts, with mistakes, but a person. And that, my dear, is priceless." Ashley smiled. Emily did too. Outside, New York City sparkled under summer lights. At the Grand Imperial, tomorrow there would be rooms to clean, sheets to change, floors to scrub. But Emily was no longer just the woman who cleaned. She was Emily Carter, 43 years old, mother, survivor, witness. And although the world still treated her like the help, she knew the truth. The help held up entire buildings. Without them, everything collapsed. Maybe that was where her power resided, not in being seen, but in knowing that without her, nothing stood. Dignity, after all, wasn't begged for. It was claimed, and Emily Carter had learned, late but firmly, to claim hers. Do you know someone who deserves to be seen? Share this story. Sometimes, the first step to changing a system is recognizing that it exists. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that challenge the invisible.